past DVC A&R, Professor Atoebi, the past Provost of the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, and Professor Afolabi Leshi, past Provost, CMUL. Dr. Dayo Adetifa, the Director General, NCDC from Abuja. Dr. Bolaji Lawal, former President of the Pediatric Association of Nigeria. Dr. Itoro Ibia, friend, big sis of the inaugural lecturer. Mazi and Mrs. Kingsley Okereke, the in-laws, welcome. Thank you for coming. The children, Mrs. N.M. Sivian Ekure, Mr. Iberedem and Mrs. Jennifer Ekure, and Mr. Akan Ekure. And finally, but certainly not the least, the boss, the life coach, and personal manager of Professor Ekure, Barrister NCCAC Titus Ekure. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Management Services, Professor Lucien Chukwu. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics and Research, Professor Bola Obo. The Registrar and Secretary to Council, Oladejo Aziz Esquire. The Bursar, Mrs. Oluwafunmilola Adekunle. The University Librarian, Professor Yetunde Zaid. The Provost, College of Medicine, Professor David Oke. The Dean, Faculty of Clinical Sciences, Professor Folashade Akinshola, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You will have to agree with me that in the very convincing tradition of dons of the University of Lagos, this professor of pediatrics and pediatric cardiology, Professor Ekanem Nsikak Ekure, has presented a mind-blowing piece titled A Heartfelt Journey of Discoveries, Little Hearts, Genes, and Faces. This afternoon, the inaugural lecturer has taken us on a journey of discoveries, which is the product of 20+ years of looking into the hearts, faces, and then the genes of children with heart disease. Her journey started with a confirmation in a study of cardiovascular disorders in childhood autopsies in Louth over a 10-year period, which was published in 2005. In that study, it was found that 4.7% of 1,000 children had heart disease. Furthermore, they found that 7 out of every 10 child with heart disease had congenital heart disease, in other words, was born with it. In further studies in 2015, involving over 4,000 children, Professor Ekure was able to show that rheumatic heart disease, a former common disease of childhood, was no longer common and had less than a 0.27% frequency in children having heart disease. During the lecture, the lecturer revealed that the next phase of her heartfelt discoveries led to the unraveling of the causes of congenital heart disease in Nigerian children. Her work showed that maternal infection with rubella was a frequent cause of congenital heart disease, a condition that could be prevented with rubella-containing vaccines. Another risk factor was heredity, as a third of over 700 children with congenital heart disease in Louth had extracardiac anomalies indicative of a genetic syndrome, the most common